Hi, I'm Tim Eskew.
And I'm Amanda Stradling. We are East Valley Leader Lab, and this is our podcast, Mind and Body at Work.
Wellness, well-being, and mindfulness are trending right now as organizations try to attract and retain the best talent in this tumultuous post-COVID world. At the Leader Lab, we agree these are important concepts and overdue for being fully utilized in the workplace.
We also believe that these concepts only work when you treat the mind and body as a whole. We are excited to be part of a societal shift in attention toward the whole person. We invite you to join us as we begin to look broadly and deeply at wellness, well-being, and mindfulness in the workplace.
Hello, my name is Tim Eskew. This is my partner, Amanda Stradling, and we are East Valley Leader Lab, and this is our podcast, Mind and Body at Work. If you resonate with any of the content you see today, we would love for you to like, share, or subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Today, we are going to offer more unique perspectives on well-being in the workplace, well-being in action. We're very pleased to have as our guest Jude Tarris. Jude, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim. Long time no see. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So Jude is president of Valley of the Sun Homecare. And I think you told me you founded it about 13 years ago?
2010, yes.
2010. And I ran into you, I'm not sure which year, but it was about 8 years ago. So I've got firsthand knowledge of the quality of the services that Jude's company offers. And this happened when my mom very suddenly needed 24-hour care. Mm-hmm. And I was working full-time. My wife was working full-time. And, you don't realize it until you need it. And then you need it now, and you want good quality, right? These are the people you care about the most. So we knew that with Jude's experience, he would have some interesting perspectives on well-being. And so let's get into that conversation. Amanda, do you want to get us started?
Yeah. Jude, is it all right if we start with hearing a little bit about your story and what led you into this industry?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say it began, trying to do the math, if it's 13 years of having the agency, probably about 15, 16 years ago, I was kind of at a point in my life where many are, where they are trying to figure out what they're going to do next in their career. And I, since I was a child, always, had that entrepreneurial aspect to myself. But at that time, about 15 years ago, I was presented what I would call an opportunity to be a caregiver for a home care agency. I was living in Florida, and my friend / roommate, I'm in my 20s, I guess, at the time, he had started up a home care agency. At that time, I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what a caregiver was. I, quite frankly, was afraid of old people. But he told me about this guy, George, that he needed a male caregiver for, and luckily it wasn't a 24-hour type of need that was something that you needed a lot of skill and training with. It was more on the companionship side, taking him to the grocery store, sure. Making him breakfast, and some things like that. And so I thought, hey, why not? I'll give it a try. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. I'm going to do this until I get into my next career. And so obviously I remember George by name. I remember him by face. He's since passed away. But I remember him, often shaking my hand as he's sitting in his wheelchair leaving, tears welling up, and me trying to hold it back as I kind of am a little bit right now. And the impact that has, I think most people probably don't have a career or job where they truly can make a difference. And in many ways, I feel like it's selfish of me because I enjoyed how much the impact I had on George. And so fast forward, I move out to Arizona to start my new career path, but that stuck with me. And and that idea kept developing, and my entrepreneurial interest since a child kind of said, hey, why not this and why not now? So yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
It's interesting because I didn't know, that you had ever done firsthand caregiving. I saw the quality of care in the staff that you brought, but that's cool that you started out hands-on.
Things are a lot different with my company and my role today as it is 13 years ago. And when we met, it was kind of in that middle period.
Yeah.
But in those early years, I was probably transitioning more away from that caregiver role by the time I met you. But in those early years, you need a caregiver if you have a client, but you can't have you can't just have caregivers on board and not have any clients. So I did all parts of the roles at that time, and so yes, I was often the caregiver in addition to payroll and scheduling and everything else that comes about.
Yeah, young businesses are like that a lot.
Yeah,
they kind of do all of it.
And I think there's nothing, no better way of learning than that way, because, if I hadn't now or even a few years ago, someone could, employee could pull the wool over your eyes saying, you can't do this or you can do this or whatnot. But no, I know I've been there, I've done it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've got empathy for the difficult situations they can be in as well, right? Having done it all yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's also an important way to really tap into the care that you have for that industry, doing all the parts of it. It helps you really feel the passion for it, I think. And that makes you a better leader.
Yeah.
Having done it.
Yeah. From like a business ownership aspect, I'm sure there's some businesses you could create or start or run that you don't have a passion for, but you could do that in this line of work, but you're not going to last. It won't be worth it to you, no matter how much money you make or whatever it may be, because if you don't have that caring and passion, you're going to work yourself right out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about your company's mission and, a little more about what the care that you have around that and what some of your company's goals are?
Yeah, well, so in a nutshell, the mission is to be able to provide great care to elderly people, at the later stage of their lives who have been independent, but aren't so independent anymore and need your help to keep whatever independence that they can keep. And so the mission, I think, often changes from client to client that we help. In some aspects, it is to keep mom in independent living so she doesn't have to move to the scary assisted living, which isn't really scary, but no one wants to make those transitions. Sometimes it is to provide the mission is to provide a smiling face and a helping hand, kind of like I was with George, my first client. So it kind of changes a little bit from person to person, but whether it's that very complex case of what that person needs or more basic, I'm all about quality and making sure that we're doing the job that I would expect of my own family, because I don't know, I maybe being the youngest of four boys, I'm very competitive, too competitive often, most people will say, and have high expectations, which may burn some people out. But I when I met you years ago, I didn't want to let you down, and that is how I am of every person I help. So whatever it is that we're helping, I want to make sure people really feel, that it was of use there.
Yeah, and you focused in on the direct recipient of the services, often elderly people, but you're helping the whole network around that person, right? Every time, the whole ecosystem. Is that And do you think of that as part of the goal, or does it just happen? Because, I can still remember that situation. It's a bad feeling, not knowing how you're going to take care of your loved one. And when someone comes along and provides a solution, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I feel like I'm reminiscing a lot on the old days because you were a part of the old days when I met you, and I don't as much. But what I'll say is, in the old days, no, I wasn't smart enough to really think that far forward. The mission was just helping that person who needs care. But quickly you learn that it is a lot more than just the care that you're providing that individual. There is so much more to it of benefit to generally the immediate family members, adult children. And unfortunately, 2 weeks ago today, my dad was hospitalized and ended up finding out he had 2 strokes and this really bad back infection that could have been lethal. He came home a couple of days ago, and now he's kind of going through the process. Hopefully his will be quick, get back to his baseline and not be on this path. But to that point is I'm experiencing now, even though I've done this for so long, and I know there's this other perspective, I'm seeing it from this other perspective. And I'm at a conference earlier this week, and I'm trying to focus on that, but I'm also focusing on what are my parents doing? Like, they told the hospital that, he has Medicare insurance, and he does, but his primary is VA insurance, and he's going to be stuck with this probably like a $50,000 bill if he doesn't get that corrected, and let alone, like a few days before that, it was, if we don't get fixed, this infection could kill you, and so forth. So, there is so much more to the benefit of these types of services than the actual care that you're providing someone. It's far-reaching there. Yeah.
Even in my own neighborhood, we live in an area where a lot of older people seem to have kind of settled. And 4 of my neighbors just on my little street are really in need of full-time at-home care at this point. And one of them out of the 4 has part-time care. And so that puts a little bit of stress and worry on my husband and I, who are some of the few able-bodied people on the street, to be available to help them, pick them up when they fall, bring them some food sometimes.
And you're just a neighbor. You're not an immediate family, yet it's stressful to you and taxing to you. And I heard something, if I heard kind of between lines what you're saying, that there's probably 4 people that could use help and only 1 is getting it, and it's only part-time.
Yeah.
And so I don't, I can't remember the specifics of the help we provided your mother, Tim, but if this applies, but it is probably 95% of the time, people that get our help should have had our help, whether it was months or years earlier. And so when we talk about the well-being of the family members, that's very taxing because they're fighting and resisting getting that help, and so that is putting additional pressure and worrisomeness on the family, or in your case,
community.
even the neighbors, the community. And so it's rare that we start helping someone really at the time that they need it. It's delayed and delayed and delayed. And I'm trying to remember exactly what you mentioned, Tim, in the beginning of our talk here, but you said something along the lines of how, oh darn it, I'll skip over that. It just skipped me here, but it's a good point that I'll circle back to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say I think people looking at this as, something they might have to deal with in the future are thinking, you're trying to work and there's all these logistical issues and you don't have time, but that's the surface stuff. Then I think what you're experiencing now is what else comes with it is, these are your parents, and this is a very emotional part of your life when you see your parents start to decline.
Yeah.
A little bit of a signal of guess what's coming for you next?
Yeah.
So,
And it often doesn't go as you anticipate. My brothers and I have, for probably the last 10 years now, as we're getting older, have always joked, but also serious, that our dad is going to outlive my mom by who knows how many years. And it's not because of his good, healthy choices. He smokes probably, I don't know, I don't smoke, so I don't know, but he smokes a lot. He does not have, he doesn't have good, healthy habits, yet he's always been healthy, never has issues. Whereas my mom, purposely tries to have better habits but is often sick. And so that's also throws your curveball and is a little scared, because we're like, okay, well, what happens now if actually this goes the other way? Because we hadn't really been thinking about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then who takes care of your mom?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because it can be a little different than if it is the other way. And so, yeah. And to your point, it just came back when you mentioned with your scenario how it came quickly and fast, and she needed 24-hour care. Not that I'm going to change the thought process in the world with this comment, but no one having care and giving up that independence is something that no one wants to do.
Right.
And so, and it's often not talked about often. And yet people, when that situation happens where you have to take action because your loved one has said, no, I'm fine. Those months or years leading up to it, they say that they don't take action. Well, when that action finally does take place, it's often, our services are not, unfortunately, cheap, and yet it's usually a last minute and very expensive process that you're going through. And so unlike, you're buying a car, most people are like, oh, I'm excited. They kind of think about the car they're going to get, maybe a year or two before they do get it, or whatever it is. You usually research and you put time and planning into it. But so often people are, because something significant happens, they're forced to make a decision quickly without really thinking through the process as you would if it was a different type of a service that you would get.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of trust involved, right? I mean, unless we didn't have any relationship before this happened. I think you were recommended to us through the life care place that my mom was already in. We had to trust that the people that you were sending were going to be safe people, and it's a difficult phase and really important. I can imagine, what it would be like if you weren't getting good quality care sent, and that adds to the problems rather than helping and supporting.
Yeah, and sometimes when that good quality isn't there, talking about the overall well-being, it's not uncommon that we get a call from someone who has had help previously, and they tell us it's usually one of a handful of things. The caregiver didn't show up. The caregiver did this, caregiver did that. It's not always the caregiver at the office, administratively did something wrong. But we kind of come into that situation, but sometimes it's, they might have that bad experience once or twice. And then it's like, what, why are we even having help? Because it's they're creating more issues than helping us. And so it's important to try to, you're lucky that you were able to be referred by, even though it was short notice on you, you were getting information from someone who had more knowledge there at that moment.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a godsend at the time. So the theme of our podcast is well-being. We often say well-being in the workplace, but we can broaden the meaning of that. What we're really interested in is just different perspectives on well-being. So I'm curious, in your line of work, how do you think about well-being? How do you think about well-being in relation to your clients? And then do you actually have any informal or formal measures of that? What are you measuring to make sure everything's going okay at the level of the caregiving?
Yeah, well, I guess that's at the forefront is that the well-being of the person we're caring for. That's ultimately why we're there, is because their well-being to a certain extent is compromised, and we're there to help maintain that their well-being so that they are safe and they are able to continue to live their life with the little bit of extra help of one of our caregivers. And so that is front and center is the well-being. I mean, you'll have personalities that don't match all the time, and we try to work through that and some other things along those lines. But at the core of it, it's that the person that's caring for them is taking care of their well-being, because if they have a great personality match and whatnot, but they're not keeping them safe, what good are we doing there? So the well-being is important. I would say, from as I think it seems like you often talk about wellness and well-being from the wellness side, as I kind of understand wellness and well-being, is that then it's kind of taken it to another level where that's not as important as the well-being, but the wellness of where, we're able to help that person that is coming out of a rehab facility from a stroke or broken hip or whatever it is, and help be a part of that team to do their physical therapy exercises within the range of motion. Simply the companionship aspect. So many of the people we care for live in their own home and are isolated from the rest of society to an extreme, or to at least some extent, because of limitations of not driving or whatever it may be.
Especially as people do age, that isolation is a very big obstacle to well-being, I think. Yeah,
and so it's interesting, because a lot of times that person who is resistant to their family setting up care, what's really, I'll say, is exciting that I like to see is that person who comes in resistant, and then we get that great match where it's like they become an extended part of the family or a friend, and we're getting them out to social activities and doing things, and they look at their caregiver as the family or friend, and that's great, because now they love having us there, and they're getting their well-being taken care of, and the wellness and their quality of life is improved dramatically in those types of situations.
Yeah, I'm hearing so many aspects of well-being that you've brought out, like their social connections, so important, their emotional satisfaction and happiness, and of course their physical health and the things you're doing to improve that as well. So many different things that you're monitoring and working to kind of elevate. Yeah,
and I don't think you hear that often, though, about, at least often enough, the social isolation and depression and all that comes with the elderly community. But if you just sit for a moment and think about it, yes, it's prevalent, because you may be in a situation where your spouse has passed away, so your partner is no longer there, so that creates more isolation, and maybe they were the one that did the driving, and you're not capable of driving, and so now it's not only is your spouse gone, but now you can't get around as easily, and so on and so forth, and that's it's got to be super tough, and just frankly stinks to be at the end, the back end of your life, and not have that type of good feelings that you should have.
There's a another aspect of wellness that's coming up for me, as you know, I'm kind of revisiting this history a little bit, that I think is really important, and that's the dignity of the client. So you gave hands-on examples when the caretaker becomes kind of part of the family because they're getting them out of the environment and they're making them look good when people come to visit. A lot of that is about dignity, right?
Yeah.
Feeling that you're still part of the tribe, you still matter. To me, that would be one of the things that stood out for certain caregivers is that they immediately, just created this, treating them like they are a human being, still a full human being on this earth, and deserving respect like any adult.
I can't, being a guy, I can't relate as much to this, but there's several clients I could think of over the years where without us, our female client, wouldn't be able to put on their makeup and this is what I'm saying. I can't really identify with it because I don't do that, but that is such an important thing for these clients, and so they could be presentable, and then be able to interact with their friends, because otherwise, if they can't, then they're feeling less themselves, and then this where the depression and so forth sets in because they're not able to do what they had done previously.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of these things we're talking about are directly relevant to elderly people needing extra care. But as I reflect, these are things that are real in a workplace of working adults as well. People feeling isolated, maybe not so much needing help putting on their makeup, but people feeling isolated, not having a network of friends, feeling like they're being left out. These are aspects of well-being at any stage of life, and they kind of come to the fore at the stage you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And of course, the younger you are and more able-bodied you might be, you take on more of the responsibility of trying to fill all those aspects of your own health. But as a healthy society that is focused on well-being, and especially as a leader in your community, you have some responsibility too to be looking out for those measures of well-being in the people around you, I believe.
Yeah, and I don't have the stat in the back of my head, but you could easily Google about the caregiver, because we haven't really talked much at this point yet about the caregiver and how the caregiver often over time, when it's a family caregiver, I'm not talking about a professional caregiver, although they have their burnout issues and problems as well.
Sure.
But the family caregiver way too often ends up taking on such a burden and so much stress that their health ends up accelerating the person they're caring for, and that's a shame to me. That's showing that they're not getting enough help and support that they should get, because they are burning themselves out so fast that they're end up being in worse shape than the person they're caring for. And it's not necessarily just that they don't have the means to having help, but oftentimes what I see as well is the guilt or assumption that I'm, the spouse, I need to be able to care for my partner, or, I'm the child, they took care of me, this is my job to take care of them. And I think both of those are healthy and good to be able to do that, but there comes a point where the care that you're providing, if it's a few hours, 10, even 20 hours a week, okay, that's depending upon the person, is probably healthy and okay. But when it gets to the point that you need around-the-clock care, and even well before then, that is too much for one person, and that burnout comes in, and that's when their own health fails. I mean, think about it this way. Those that need around-the-clock care, that's 168 hours in a week. And if you go by a 40-hour job being a full-time job, that's over 4 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And so
if you're doing it at night also, yeah.
Yeah, so I try to explain when I come across those situations to that family member, hey, it's great you're helping, but it's a lot, and having help doesn't mean that you're not a good son or daughter or spouse. It actually, is a good thing, because when not only can it affect your own health, but then that's when you see, people, losing their patience and maybe doing things and saying things that they wouldn't normally do, but they're just so overwhelmed with the aspect of providing care there, and in turn they're doing harm rather than help of their loved one. Yeah.
Yep. And then that's the burnout of the family member caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
If they come to you, they're going to get help with that. But then you've got all these caregivers that are working lots of hours, giving care, and some obvious things that you can do to support them is put them on shifts, right? So they're not working 24 hours, one person.
Yeah.
But are there other things that you do? Are there signs that you look for in your caregivers, or are there things that you have structured in your program to deal with, the caregivers not getting burned out?
Yeah, so that's, I feel like, such a loaded question with so many different directions with it. So to kind of bring you into the speed of the average caregiver, of course, there's all different kinds, but the average caregiver is this job is providing their source of income, and unfortunately the pay isn't enough to be able to live, especially over the last couple of years with inflation, to be able to cover your expenses that you need to. And so it is so common that, and I would say the majority of people don't just work 40 hours or something of that, like with one company. They're forced to have to take a second job and find other ways of income as well. However, I wish I could. I wish I looked up what our caregivers were making when we were helping your mother, but I could feel pretty confident. I think it's double that now. So pay has gone up significantly, but it's still, with inflation, is really tough. So from the well-being of them, it's tough, because when I was at this conference recently that I was just mentioning, there was an expert talking about benefits and kind of indirectly the well-being of how do we ensure the well-being of our caregivers, and this is where I kind of say it's almost like a double-edged sword, because caregivers will say they want more paid time off in various forms, but they also are throwing their hand up asking for overtime, and so it's trying to have that balance so that we're not wearing them out, and it's a hard balance to do, but I would say, just like any type of a company, whether it's what we do or any type, we offer major medical and dental and time off and things that you would hope and expect. Unfortunately, because again, talking about the pay of a caregiver, many of them aren't able to participate in things such as health benefits because the cost portion is extreme. But overall, what really I think makes the most impact. I mean, you can't work someone 168 hours around the clock, or even 80 with them getting burnt out. But the simple act of showing appreciation, whether that's from us within the company, or we often will get compliments from our client or their family member saying, "Oh, so and so is such a great caregiver," and I say, "Oh, thanks for telling me that, but I know it would mean even more if you tell them, if it comes from you." So that appreciation really goes a long way there as well.
Absolutely. That's great. Let's see. So we've talked a lot about caring for your clients, talked a lot about your company, and we've talked about taking care of your caregivers a little bit. At the Leader Lab, we focus a lot on the role our body plays in well-being and just how we show up in the world. Do you see any connections between embodiment and the way we use our bodies in caregiving and the well-being of that aspect that you're talking about?
I'm not sure if I'm reaching too much here, but caregiving is a I was gonna say a physically hard job. It is a physically hard job, but it's also a mentally hard job. It is a hard job all around, and so the well-being of the caregiver, whether professionally or as a family, is so important to make sure that you're able to handle those tough mental and physical challenges. And to kind of give an example, physically, many clients need help with, the ambulation, with transferring, getting up from bed to wheelchair or what have you. And so there are, techniques that you could learn to make that easier and safer. But yeah, you need to, the better shape you are in physically and mentally, I think that helps. And from the mental aspect, there's so much that the client is going through, that being there for them, and being that companion, that friend, and hearing them out is super important. And we occasionally have to remind our caregivers, because when you become friends, you tell stories and share issues and problems, and we have to remind them occasionally, don't discuss your challenges and problems with our client, because as I mentioned earlier, so often they become more than a caregiver and client.
Friends.
They become the friend or family, and we don't want to share the issues and problems that we're going through, because that's going to wear on our client, because they worry about them. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
In the Leader Lab, we call it being present, open, and connected. When you're really with someone, you're listening not just with, your ears, your listening organs. You're not just listening with your mind, but you listen with your body too. You really get present in the room, kind of orient your body. You use body language to communicate your listening. So your body's a tool, I think, in every part of caregiving, just from the listening, from, physically helping them and serving them, and everything you do. I think if you can show up as a more embodied person, it would help them be a better caregiver.
I think you said present, open, and connected.
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And what I immediately thought when you said that is like that old saying, showing up to a job is half the half the battle there. I think of that at least in the aspect of like managing people. It's like, if you show up, that's half the battle there. Like you're doing a decent job if you show up. Unfortunately, it's kind of a low standard. But to that point, that is one of the most important things, and one of the not that it happens often with us, but one of the most common complaints is the caregiver isn't, what would you say again,
Present, open, and connected.
And so what I take from that is the difference between the caregiver that's just showing up to their job, and they're not really present, open, and connected, versus the one who genuinely takes that interest in that person, and they are focusing on them, and they're connected to them, and they're not on their phone the whole time, and they're doing what's in their best interest. And that, you have that, and that makes all the difference in average to exceptional there.
Yeah, I think a mind-body practice can only help in allowing people to be more present and open and connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was coming up for me was I don't remember seeing this, but the caregivers have, they're working a shift 8 or 12 hours, and some of that time the client's going to be sleeping,
mm-hmm.
the client's going to be occupied. There'd be opportunities for the caregiver to do some simple exercises, breathing type exercises and a little bit of mobility. Just I don't know if I've seen them do that, but I imagine that would be that could be a practice that would be worth encouraging.
I like
there was
that.
a way to do that.
Yeah, I like to think I've thought of most things and whatnot, but like the light bulb went off when you said that, because you're right. There are so many clients that we have where there is downtime, where it is perfectly okay not to be engaging with the client at all time because they're napping or what have you, and all the errands around the house and chores have been done. And so that is interesting. I'm going to take note of that to see what we could do, because typically what we say is, well, we want to make sure we have everything in order, and then at that point we have the one situation comes to mind is that we often have caregivers that are students, maybe going to college or university or whatnot, and so they'll use that, especially the overnight ones, to use that time to study, and so that is a great benefit for them to do that. Yeah. But it would be nice to maybe kind of put together a little program of sort where we could encourage them to use some of that time to do that as well. Yeah,
15 or 20 minutes could make a difference.
A huge difference.
Yeah, and when everyone always says, "Oh, I don't have enough time to do this or that," well, that person who works on that type of a client, there is downtime, so we could make time for that. Yeah.
I was going to shift gears a little bit, but did you have any follow-ups on that? Related
no,
to that
was great.
So. When we were talking last week, I think you mentioned that you've run into cases, so we talk about wellness in the workplace. You would run into cases where you were seeing or hearing about the benefits of the services you provide transferring into the workplace. Yeah. Remember that part of the conversation? Yeah. Is there an example you can share with us, without given names and things?
Yeah, well, when we were talking about that, what I was really trying to emphasize is how much being a caregiver, being that specifically being the adult child who is still employed and working, how much that can take away from that person's productivity in the workplace. And I was using the example of how this isn't a common benefit that you see, and it's usually reserved for very high wage earners, CEOs of the type and so forth, where if you think about a situation that you have gone through, or that that someone has gone through that is still in the workforce and they may be in that type of a situation, if you have to, your mom falls and breaks her hip. She has to go to the hospital, is usually there for a week or two. You're trying to figure out what's going on. At first you're thinking, hopefully it's nothing and she's didn't break a leg or hip or whatever, and she's just going to come home. But then you find out it is more than that. And then you find out when she leaves the hospital, she's going to have surgery beforehand. Then she leaves the hospital and she's going to have to go to a rehab facility. And maybe this is something where this is kind of, it's not safe for her to go back home now. And so now you have to start looking at either hiring a caregiver or having to move her maybe into independent or assisted living facility instead of her home. That is so much time and effort and stress that is a benefit that is offered at times because to those very key people, because they are so important to the company, that them being away, and again, doesn't mean that they don't care about their mother or father, but them being away for those impromptu and sporadic moments can be very impactful negatively on the company and business that they're involved in, because they're not the reliable person that's fully focused that they've always been. And so it just shows that when a benefit like that is being offered, it shows that that it is truly something that takes a lot from someone, both time and emotionally there.
Have you heard of any, it would probably be just the big companies, providing any sort of support? I mean, if it's, the CEO or the vice president, they probably don't need that monetary help. But have you heard of any benefits being offered by companies to help pay for services
to cover the financial aspect?
Yeah.
No. And it probably may be worth to quickly mention as well is that generally our services are a hourly fee that is this important to mention, because too often people think when they need this that, I just Medicare is going to cover it. No, this is not an expense that's covered by Medicare. It is paid out of pocket, and for the few lucky ones that may have a long-term care insurance policy, it is covered in that manner. And then on the other end of the spectrum, on the Medicaid system, they do provide at times maybe up to 20 to 40 hours of care for those that are in deep financial need. And then there are some VA benefits that may cover a little bit as well, but it's generally an out-of-pocket expense. And no, I don't think I've ever seen being subsidized by a company in that manner. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think to your point, though, at least for that higher level, they don't need the financial of it. They just need their time back more so than the help financially. And I think, really it comes down to dollars and cents. If this was being offered to the average employee, that is a huge expense that is going to add up there. But you never know. I mean, there's companies like Google that offer some amazing benefits. I actually have a friend at Google. I need to ask her if they have anything like that. That would be interesting. Yeah, because I figure if anyone does, it would probably be someone like that.
Right, be the big successful companies. Well, believe it or not, we've about used up our time.
Oh, okay.
Was there anything else you wanted to share? Any other stories?
I don't think so, other than just that I appreciate you having me in, because, as I said earlier, to me, I am so focused on providing great quality care, and I'm assuming we did somewhat of that case, because otherwise you wouldn't have reached out to me years later asking me to come talk with you. So so that makes me feel good knowing that we probably succeeded with you there.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I remembered not only that it was a good experience, but I remembered that you personally were involved multiple times, and I knew where to go look for your name and look you up. So it made that kind of an impression. Yeah,
and if any of the listeners actually find themselves in this type of a situation, what I'll say as well is that we're and need to hire a company. We're dealing with people. And it's not like we're making microphones and you make them all the same and the consistency and quality is exactly the same. You're dealing with people. And so things happen. We're not perfect. And I think you should expect that whether whatever company that you work with. And it's a matter, though, that, more times out of not, you have a good quality caregiver. And then when something does go wrong, that they're listening and taking action to whatever that issue is there. But you can't expect perfection, I think, is what I'm thinking, because occasionally you have that person that expects you're going to send a robot out that is a perfect person of what they think is perfect, which is not the same as what you think is perfect or what you think or myself.
Right.
And so you just have to have a little patience and open dialogue so that you kind of really tune in. So you can really tune in and get the right fit there for you.
Yeah, if I recall that, in the beginning there were maybe 3 or 4 different people that came out at different times, and then we found people and we said, this person, is the right fit. Can we have this person come more often?
Yeah.
You were able to accommodate that.
And when we talk about the whole needing help and needing it right away, that doesn't help the case. When you need help and you need help right away, we get help to you, but finding the perfect fit is much easier to do when you have a little bit of planning and preparation, as opposed to calling saying, I need help starting tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we almost had to do that, but so it took a little time, but then the quality people were there and showed up.
Yeah, good.
All right, so if somebody is needing this care, what's the easiest way for them to find Valley of the Sun Homecare?
I would say if you want to do a little bit more of your due diligence, would be going to our website. It's a long name, which is our company. It's Valley of the Sun Homecare.com.
Okay.
And Google us and see what others are saying, reviews and so forth. If you want to actually reach out to us, you could through the website. But if you want to give us a call, our number is 480-264-5252.
Great. Well, Jude, I want to thank you one more time for the quality service you provided when I needed it several years ago. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing your perspectives on well-being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure thing.
So for our listeners, thank you for being here also. This is Mind and Body at Work with East Valley Leader Lab. And we'll remind you one more time, if you find this content resonates with you in your cares, we'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. And we'll leave it at that. We wish you to be well and keep moving.